So, today I will be talking about story and what story is, which is not really what you think actually. The normal way of thinking about story is that you have this sequence of events. So, take this little tale as an example. There is a happy village, and all of a sudden a dragon appears in the happy village and destroys it, and the villagers are very, very afraid. A hero appears with some sort of magical weapon, decides, I am going to slay the dragon. The hero then is on a journey up to the mountain where the dragon lives. They encounter the dragon, but they're in deep peril. In the very last moment, they manage to use their magical weapon, and they use the dragon's own fire against them and destroys the dragon. And so this is a kind of standard story. I mean, it's not a very interesting story, I guess, but it's a sequence of events. So you think about it like, yeah, at some point has to be given a magical weapon, and then at the end we have to have some sort of reversal here and being in peril, and there's like at the last moment something happens. But that's not really how to think about stories. The way to think about stories, first of all, is that it's some sort of telepathy, in that an author or authors have an idea and they want to teleport that idea, transfer it into the mind of the audience. And that's really what you want to be doing. So if you have a writer, obviously smoking a pipe, and that writer has some idea, that idea is very seldom a very specific chain of events. That's not really, for everyone who's ever written or done a story, that's not really how you do it. Instead, this idea is like a collection of stuff. So the story here at the center has like, yeah, there's a magical weapon involved. And yeah, there is a dragon involved, and yeah, I'm thinking about some treacherous journey that the hero undertakes, and the villagers has to be afraid. Like you have all of these emotions, events, themes, all of that is sponged into this story, and that's really what you're trying to get across. So when you're doing, say, a movie, you have to do this sequentially. There is no other way for you to do it in this format. There has to be a plot, which is the linear sequence of events. So when you have your audience and they're watching your movie, they're gonna be watching a screen. The screen presents them with various stimuli, sounds, and pictures for the most of the time, and in doing so, they get an idea imprinted in their head. And this is sort of what we call passive entertainment, in that the audience, they simply digest it. It's a one-way street, so the information is embedded in the movie, and you as an audience digest it. Now, look into games. So we still have this story we want to get across. And the way to not think about it is to like, okay, what moment in the game do we have this reversal here? That is totally the wrong way of thinking about it. Instead, what you want to be thinking about it is how you're going to break this up into the main parts of the game. So the main part of the game is that you want to have some sort of content or assets, that is how the monster looks like, how the environment looks like, and so on. Then you also want to have some form of input from the player. Generally we call this verbs, and then all of that is tied together with systems. And so system is a combat system or something like that. And so the player now plays, they are providing input to a system that feeds back some sort of output, and you have a loop going on here. And this is what we call active storytelling, and it's very different from movies in that the audience doesn't simply passively digest it, but instead they're actively pulling it out of the media. They're an active participant in the storytelling. So thinking about when is the reversal going to happen is totally the wrong way of seeing it. It's more about what sort of tools can I provide? How can I set up my assets, my systems, and the player verbs in such a way that the player will have some sort of experience like that? If it is very vital that you use your magical weapon, at the very end, you should set up systems that provide just that experience. So let's dig into a little bit what I mean. And let's say that an author, again, obviously smoking a pipe for some reason, I drew it like that, and they have an idea of brains in vats, so consciousness and so on, as a story. Who would do a game about that? But anyway, what you now do not want to do is to directly think about, well, what's my plot? No. Now you need to take your sort of idea here, your story in this case, your central theme and whatnot, and you want to break out the various parts that make up this. And in some ways this can be sort of some thematic stuff, situations you want the player to get across. And say Soma, a very important thing was this sort of brain swap moment that we had at a certain point, and that was an important thing. And then the environment and atmosphere and stuff like that. Then when you have those things, you have to break them up into the input, the sort of assets, and into the various systems. So you have your actions, assets, and system. And if we think about this, how it works, so say that you're meeting a certain character. So that's a big part of the story, that you meet characters, you talk to them, they provide information to get some sort of emotional content across. Then you have your verbs, which is, there needs to be a talking verb. This is the input that the player provides. And then you have to think about how you do that certain input. And then you also have some sort of voices and animations. And this is the output, or the assets that are fed back to the player. And then finally you have some system, a dialogue system that ties all of this together. So in the end you have your idea, and by pulling all of these apart, as the player plays this, they're able to get this idea in their head. And I think that in order to make progress in storytelling and to really understand it and not get hindered by it, you need to understand it. You need to stop thinking about the story as this linear sequence of events, and instead you need to think about it as sort of like a pure idea, and that this idea then has all of these components that through play gets put into the player's head. And that's all what I had to say about story this time. Hopefully it was helpful.